1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue podcast sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue podcast sound check. Just give us a couple of 1-2s.
1, 2, 1, 2. Royal Blue podcast. 1, 2. Royal Blue podcast. 1, 2. 1, 2. Royal Blue podcast. 1, 2. Royal Blue podcast.
One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue podcast sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue podcast sound check. Do it again for us.
Royal Blue podcast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue podcast. It's the Wednesday show. We are live, and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio this afternoon to talk all things Everton, we have Tony Scott. Tony, how are things? All good?
Yeah, all good. Nice to come back into the studio on the back of a win, and hopefully we can follow it up on Saturday.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I can't exactly remember the last time you were on, but I know it was when we were probably on the back of a couple of poor results. So,
Just calling me a jinx.
no, I'm not. I'm just saying it's going to be nice to come in. Yeah. I mean, the lads have on Monday discussed Ipswich in depth, and we will kind of have the final word on it. But it's nice to come in and talk about the win for once, isn't it?
It is. No, do you know, listen, it breeds a lot of confidence around the club, especially when you consider it was our first away win in 10 months, I think I read somewhere. So, yeah, it hasn't been the best of times following Everton on and off the pitch. So it was nice to get a win under our belts, especially away from home. I'm not getting overly optimistic on the back of the performance. It was just about the results, getting the 3 points, giving ourselves a little bit of breathing space between us and the clubs below us, the likes of Palace and Wolves struggling themselves, and obviously Ipswich down there. So, yeah, we've got that breathing space going into a game at Goodison Park, under the lights, Saturday night, against a team we generally do well against at Goodison. So, yeah, optimism around the club, but I'm not jumping through hoops on the back of the performance because I think Everton can play a lot better than what they did on Saturday.
Okay, well, we will get into it, but before we do so, I've got a bit of nostalgia for you.
Hit me.
Go on. So, on this day, 2017, Ronald Koeman was sacked as Everton manager. Do you remember you, me and Adam doing a reaction pod to the breaking news?
I do. I remember that well. And was it Ronald Koeman sacked? It was 2017.
Well, if my information is correct, yeah, if it is correct.
Wow.
So it was in the infancy, I suppose, if you want to call it that, of the Royal Blue podcast.
It was, yeah.
And we probably did it on a phone.
That's 8 years ago.
8 years.
Wow. Oh, to be Matt's here 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, sorry.
Well, yeah, so I just remember the news broke, and our editor at the time was like, you've got to do a podcast.
Yeah, and we done it.
I think, obviously, was it Greg O'Keefe and Phil and all that was still?
Yeah,
I don't think they were working at the time.
Yeah, so me, you and Adam ran into
Adam Jones was in, and we gave you the call, and
we were in.
Yeah,
we were crashing out. White Koeman was sacked, and
That podcast probably does still exist somewhere.
Yeah, we'll find it. We'll
Should
dig
we
it out,
find
and someone will throw it at us. And
May-
our unpopular opinions at the time.
Yeah, maybe we should republish it as like a classic pod.
Why was Koeman sacked? Yeah,
It'd be quite interesting to hear our thoughts.
I don't want to know. We probably have to do the moonwalk back here and go. No, I don't fancy that one.
I mean, I remember at the time, as I am with probably most managers, I was quite scathing of Koeman. Now I look back and go, why was I? Maybe we should have kept him for a little bit longer. Maybe.
But you know, interestingly, and it's ironic, this weekend, the only manager I think was harshly treated by Everton and shouldn't have been sacked at the time was Marco Silva.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really think he was very unfortunate. Had some horrible luck with injuries, and obviously the likes of Marcel Brands buying players in, and he wanted players, he wanted kids to get kids Zuma, and just a guy was obviously sold, and he brought in Fabian Delph and Jean-Philippe Gabam in, and all these players, and you could just tell it wasn't what he wanted. And I liked his identity, and he's come on to do very well at Fulham, hasn't he? I liked a lot about Marco Silva. I think he's a very good manager.
Well, he was. A lot of preamble here, but we'll carry on with it. He was sacked on the back of obviously a disastrous result against Liverpool at Anfield, but Liverpool were probably the second best team in the world at the time. Probably shouldn't be comparing ourselves at the time to Liverpool as the second best team.
I think if memory serves me right, I think we lost 3 and he was sacked.
He was on a bad run. I think he was on a bad run, but I think obviously expectations at the time were quite high, and maybe we did see ourselves not on par with Liverpool.
Yeah,
but
because of expectation, you're right. And think about where we are now. Last season, we went 5 months without a win. Yeah. So it's very rare to survive that in Premier League, let alone at Everton. And Sean Dyche I think he's the longest serving manager under Farhad Moshiri, isn't he now? So,
unbelievable.
Well, so it's still reign is continuing. So, yeah, it's interesting the way it pans out. Your expectations when Farhad Moshiri came in to where we are now. I think if you were to offer every Evertonian now 16th, 15th, they'd take it all day now going towards the Bramley Moore Stadium, whereas in 7 years ago when Ronald Koeman was sacked, if I was to offer you 16th, 17th then, I'm sure you'd say, no way, yeah. I want top 4, I want top 6. So expectations have changed, haven't they, sadly?
Absolutely. Okay, well, today's agenda, it is the Fulham Look Ahead show. But before we do that, we will get into Ipswich. Me and Tony will have the final word on Everton's 2-0 win on Saturday, so plenty to discuss, and as mentioned, we are live, so get your questions, get your comments in on the stream, and I'll read them out as we go. As usual, please give us a thumbs up and drop us a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. All the support that you give us is obviously greatly appreciated. We're looking to build the channel, and we can only do that with your help. Okay, Tony, as mentioned, I think a lot of stuff and things have been said about Ipswich over the past couple of days, but I was ousted from the pod on Monday for a special guest, so I haven't actually, this is the final word, but it's also my first word as well. I don't know about you, but yeah, you've kind of touched upon it a little bit, but for me, it was just looking at the result as a whole, it was a bit of a surprise, to be honest, coming off the back of the international break. I thought it was just nailed on to be a draw. I thought Ipswich have had a lot of decent results. They haven't won or no, but they've got a lot of decent draws against the likes of Villa, I think Brighton and Fulham, obviously who we play on Saturday. So I was expecting a tough game, and I just thought it's just nailed on for a draw. We got some good, momentum going up. The international break's just going to kill it, but we didn't. It was the complete opposite. Couldn't have been any more happier. Were you surprised yourself?
Yeah, no, I was surprised that we wrapped up 2 goals early on in the first half. I think that panned the way forward. It was probably good for Everton to get them 2 first half goals, and then they could sit back and then look to counter on Ipswich. Let's not forget here, Ipswich are a poor team. They'll probably be relegated this season. And I think you've just made a reference there that they've picked up decent results against Aston Villa this season. I think they drew and they held Liverpool 2-0 on the opening day, and I think they've got a point elsewhere. But I think they had 5 or 6 injuries themselves on Saturday. I was speaking to an Ipswich fan, and he said that was that Ipswich team, I think half of them have played in League One on the basis of the injuries that they've got. Just left them depleted, a lot of injuries. And that was kind of Everton's first team. Who was injured was James Koeman was, but sorry, Jared Branthwaite and James Garner, who can think of in the first team that was injured. So that was theoretically Everton's best team against an off decent Ipswich team. So I fully expected Everton to win. I said on before the game, I expect Everton to win because they're a poor team. And Everton made to look them like a poor team, so it was a professional job. I was looking for a little bit more in the second half, if I'm being greedy, to be honest, Ian. We got the 2-0 in front, and I get what kind of happens in the past where we've lost 2-0 leads against Aston Villa and Bournemouth this season. So I get the idea and the logic behind Sean Dyche in terms of just keeping it solid this time around. But when it was like 10 or 15 minutes to go, when we were 2-0 in front, I was open to let's play a little bit of football. Let's get let's get Iliman Ndiaye on the ball more. And when he took Iliman Ndiaye off and then brought Mangala on, I was thinking, well, is this just 10 men behind the ball and umping it to Calvert-Lewin, which Calvert-Lewin on another day should have got 2 or 3 himself. I don't know what's happened to his shooting boots lately, but yeah, I was just looking to see a little bit more, but beggars can't be choosers. It's very rare in the Premier League. You will see a team play decent football and get results. And in the predicament Everton are in terms of the start that they've had, they've just got to get results at the moment. And hopefully performances will follow.
I guess Everton 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go is not a scoreline that you think is going to end like it should really, should you? Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I think the performance didn't really matter for me. I know the way you describe that and the way you put that across. If we didn't beat Ipswich, you would probably be a little bit worried about how the season was going to pan. Certainly, how these next run of games were going to pan. And now that we've got that win, don't get me wrong, we're not out of the woods by any stretch whatsoever. But I think a win either way, Ipswich. They're on 4 now, aren't they? I think 4 points. We're on 7, is it?
I think we're on 8.
8, sorry. Yeah. So, obviously they closed the gap, but now there's a bit of a gap there already. That's already there. So it's already a 2-game swing either way, which is not out the equation that Ipswich could do that. I'm talking on the basis that they're the third lowest based team in the league. Do you know what I mean?
I thought they were poor. I think they're one of the worst teams in the division. I think they're last season's Sheffield United. I think for the first couple of games, they need every single player on it. In terms of quality, I think we've dodged a massive bully with Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, a lot of people saying that.
Yeah, I looked at him and thought, wow. And I looked at it from an Ipswich perspective and I thought, I hoped Mangala was a starter because I think he can hold on to the ball a lot better than Abdoulaye Doucouré and just a Guy. So when Guy and Doucouré started, I was kind of worrying for Everton. They're not going to be able to keep the ball here. They're great off the ball, Doucouré and Guy. They're great. They're good at getting the ball back and retrieving it well and out of possession. They're really good at that. But on the ball, sometimes it's like a bit of an opportunity to them. And I think Mangala gives you that security in front of the back four and keeps hold of it a lot more.
I said that the same before kick-off. I was quite surprised that Doucouré was in over Mangala.
But the reason being as well, that surprised me with Ipswich's tactics is that they never pressed Everton. They let Doucouré and Guy have the ball, and it was more. And the irony of it is that they were pressing Iliman Ndiaye. They were running into him and getting tackles in where it should have been the other way around. You'd say to obviously with the Guy and Doucouré in midfield, you'd be pressing them into mistakes because if you're looking at Everton and you're the opposition, you'd be going, right, the two midfields, just a Guy and Abdoulaye Doucouré, they're not comfortable on the ball, they're not good on the ball, but they're good off it. Press them into mistakes, make them go back, and then we can smother them, get the ball, and obviously create chances. So that's what you'd naturally do. But Ipswich, I think they showed Everton a lot too much respect, and Everton I think Sean Dyche couldn't believe it as well. I thought, hang on, we've got a lot of the ball again. There was times in the first half where Guy and Doucouré just had the ball without an Ipswich player being anywhere near them. I couldn't believe it, to be honest, and I think the 2-0 win was just deserved. I think Everton didn't even have to break sweat. They've actually played a lot better this season, i.e. Bournemouth, and got beat. So yeah, there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more to come from this Everton team, footballing wise. I think there's a lot more in the locker. There's a lot more football to come from this Everton team from what I've seen.
Do you think there was too much focus from an Ipswich point of view on Iliman Ndiaye? Obviously, he's the standout player for Everton. He's the one that's going to make things happen. He's the one that's going to create chances. He's obviously the one that's going to score the goals. Obviously, didn't do a good job at stopping him. But do you think, from what you were saying there, that the focus was obviously too much on we got to stop Ndiaye from getting the ball, and it allowed that obviously midfield pairing to, press
dictate
forward.
The game. Yeah, you're right. I think there was a lot. You can probably see Kieran McKenna's obviously in his tactics and his build-up to pre-match with the players, he's probably thought, Ilimandiai is the star man. We need to smother him. We need to get round him. We need to get tackles in and around him. Don't be giving cheap free kicks away outside the area. That is it. Get at him early doors, which you can kind of understand. Not many teams want to give free kicks away in their half against Everton because obviously the strength that they've got. So you can see why they've obviously targeted our best player in Ilimandiai. But I just thought it was naive and just to leave Everton's two midfielders the amount of time on the ball, which obviously they got punished. Everton just dictated the game from start to finish, really, and we're very, really threatened. Something Pickford has a save to make all game, maybe one. But apart from that, no, it was a comfortable win, and it was one that was very much needed because of the start that we've had.
I mean, let's talk about Michael Keane. He's obviously been talked to death over the past couple of days, probably on all Everton podcast platforms. But what a turnaround in form. Yeah,
again, obviously, without sounding too patronising of Michael Keane, he does what he says on the tin, so to speak. He's just a steady defender at best. The two performances I've seen from him in the last two games have been decent, but you've got to take into context. One was against Ipswich, that really threatens us, and one was against Newcastle, which he didn't play with the centre forward. Anthony Gordon was up front on his own, so if Alexander Isak would have been up front, I'm sure it would have been a different ball game altogether. Everton looks a lot more balanced with Jared Branthwaite against Crystal Palace, and the games where we've conceded goals this season, Michael Keane's been at the heart of. And I'm not blaming him solely for the goals we've conceded this season, but he's been part of the problem. Aston Villa springs to mind straight away with Ollie Watkins jumping above him, which Leicester shouldn't be happening. Well. Leicester away in the penalty area. There's been a lot of examples. Bournemouth, when the ball was just in the box and you left, who's marking up here? Tottenham away, 4-0, and Brighton 3-0 on the opening. There's been a lot of examples this season where, and it's quite easy for Evertonians to forget, like on the back of the euphoria of a win, Michael Keane, great goal and all this. We've seen 8 years of Michael Keane. Do you know what I mean? He's not the best as defenders. He's a steady squad player for Everton at best. Hence why I don't get this logic as well. I've seen a lot of conversation on social media. You probably have yourself, Ian, in terms of, has Sean Dyche got a dilemma for Saturday? No. There's no dilemma about it. There's no conversation about it.
I'll have to change the title of this podcast then.
Seriously, there's no dilemma whatsoever. I just don't see the reckoning or the reason behind it, because one player scores a goal and two good games against a Newcastle team that's had no centre forwards on the pitch, and against the poor Ipswich team, so we keep him in against Fulham. No, I'm not having it. One player's going for a free transfer at the end of the season, and Michael Keane, we've had 8 years from. We've seen enough of what Michael Keane's got to offer in 8 years. And now we've got a player who the best clubs in the world want to target for 100 million in the summer. There's no reasoning behind any kind of a dilemma whatsoever. And not just in terms of quality as well. It's what they bring to the Everton team. Michael Keane, when he's playing, there's just sort of there's an aura about the team which you're going, we're worrying here, set pieces, balls in the box. And even though Michael Keane's a big lad himself, when Jared Branthwaite's in the team, there's an assurance about the whole back five, the goalkeeper, the two centre-backs, the full-backs. All of a sudden, everyone knows the job. Whereas when Michael Keane is on that pitch, and I'm not singling him out as he's the sole reason behind it, but the balance of the team just doesn't look right at all when he's at the heart of it.
I think this is in reference to what you're speaking about right now, but Alex Jones says facts. So I think you think it's reference that you're talking facts. About
Jared Branthwaite and Michael Keane. Honestly, I don't... Listen, one player's going for 100 million and one player's going for a free at the end of the season. Yeah. And if you think about it, would you be giving Michael Keane another contract at the end of the year? If anything, you'd say, do you know what? You're a squad player at best. There's a 1 year extension. That is it, maximum. You wouldn't be offering him any other kind of deal. Who would he go to?
It's too early to give an answer to that right now, I think, whether he gets a new contract or not. I think we need the new owner to come in and, for assessments to be made on the entire squad, because the only reason I would suggest that, we're going off on a bit of a tangent here, but it's a good question. The only reason I would suggest that it's a yes is because the amount of players that we're losing in the summer and the lack of squad depth. So,
we end up with 11. I think there's 10, 11 players left in the whole
That's
squad.
what I mean. So I don't think it's out the equation that he does get a new contract. No more than a year.
Yeah.
But he might just think, sod this. I don't need this. I could go somewhere else.
Does he go anywhere else?
Is he going to go anywhere bigger, higher than Everton? I mean, speaking from the blue bubble, probably not. But I don't think it's out of the equation to say you could go to like a West Ham, or I don't know whether Brighton would want a defender like Michael Keane. I don't know. I'm just trying to trying to figure
outside the top 8, 9 clubs,
he's not going to any of them.
He's not getting in any of them teams. He's not getting in any of the starting lineups in any of the mid-table teams. He's not getting in our starting lineup. He shouldn't be in Everton's starting lineup. Yeah. He's a squad player at best.
Okay, well, I'd say we'd come on to this, but you're already on it. So we'll carry on with it. I think the general consensus among Blues is unanimous, and that Jared Branthwaite should return, and I completely agree. But I also agree with what Chris said on Monday, in Monday's pod. It would be extremely harsh to drop Michael Keane on the back of what's happened over the past couple of weeks. Given all of that, and given basically Jared Branthwaite's fitness issues that he's had over the past couple of weeks, given James Tarkowski's fitness and injury issues that he's had over the past couple of weeks, is it out of the equation, or would you consider bringing Branthwaite in and resting Tarkowski to keep Michael Keane in the team? I mean, Tarkowski has been poor this season, there's no question, and I think it's obviously there's a lot of factors with regarding that. It's because his long-term defensive partner Jared Branthwaite has been out the team. He's obviously been suffering with injuries, fitness issues. Is this not a good time then to say, listen, James, you're not dropped, you just rested for the time being
for Michael Keane?
For Michael Keane, you
play your best team. If you're looking to win games of football, we're not here because we're not playing players because they've had 2 good games against a team that played with no centre forwards and a team that's getting relegated this season. So on the basis of that, we should be playing. No, you can't work football out like that. You play your best team. Jared Branthwaite and James Tarkowski are one of the success stories that are few and far between in the past 2 years on the pitch at Everton. A brilliant combination. They're a great partnership between them two, and Pickford. Everton has one of the best defensive records in the Premier League last season. You don't mess about with it. Regardless if players have a little bit of dip in form, you know quite well that they're going to be up for it. Fulham are obviously going to have Jimenez playing up front for them, whereas against Newcastle, he had nothing to cope with. And obviously Ipswich had Delap running around, kicking lumps out of everyone, which just didn't make sense. So, no, Michael Keane, he's played okay. I think he hasn't pulled up any trees, by the way. He's been okay in the previous 2 games.
Is it because of his goal?
Of course it is. Of course it is. If Michael Keane doesn't score, no one talks about him. No one talks about him. We've beaten Ipswich 2-0, happy days, Illuminati to start the show again, like the previous game. No one's talking about the previous first 5 or 6 games of the season when he was partly responsible for half the goals that we conceded. Yeah. So everyone forgets about that, but going on the back of we beat Ipswich 2-0 and he scored a thunderbolt. Well, I'm sorry, no, we want to beat Fulham. And if you want to beat Fulham, you need to play your best team.
I mean, Fulham are definitely not the best team in the league, but they're definitely going to be on another level to Ipswich, aren't they?
Oh, they're a threat. They're a threat, Fulham. They're attack-minded. They'll score goals. It's very rare that they don't score goals. Marco Silva will obviously get one over on his former employers. And I think that Everton generally do have a very good record against Fulham at home. But it's Saturday night, it's under the lights, it's Goodison Park, the atmosphere is going to be great. Don't mess about with starting lineups. You can't play players on the basis of having one good, half a decent game against the promoted side. And because he scores a Walesy from 10 yards, doesn't make him a certain starter when you've got potentially European's best left-footed defender. Seriously, Jared Branthwaite will get in most sides in Europe. He's gonna get in. Obviously, the World Cup squads. He'll probably be starting for England, and we're having a dilemma and a conversation about starting Michael Keane or Jared Branthwaite. It just doesn't make sense. We'll probably think you just made a reference there about going back to the Ronald Koeman podcast in many years gone. We'll probably make a reference to this one if England do well in the World Cup. And we've just been having a conversation about Jared Branthwaite and Michael Keane. Who starts when Jared Branthwaite's probably in the England team going to the latter ends of the World Cup competition?
No, there's no there's no debate about it from me. I knew, obviously, because we're doing a podcast, it's a topic of discussion, isn't it? And I knew we'd have the same opinion, and I'll read out some of the comments now that people are putting on the stream. But I think for all intents and purposes, Jared Branthwaite's attitude over the past 6 to 12 months, whatever, has been impeccable. He hasn't spat his dummy out. He hasn't kicked up a fuss. He's got on with the job, even though he's known his future has been up for, debate, or whether United were going to come in for him and they wanted to get that deal over the line. I think, from his point of view, I know he's been unfit. He's had a couple of injuries and he's coming back. I mean, he might not even be fully fit come Saturday.
But apparently he could have played against Ipswich, but Dyche probably thought that we'll get away with it against Ipswich.
And it's bought him a little bit more time, hasn't it, to get fitted again. What I think the point I'm trying to make is, if Jared Branthwaite is fit, which we all think that he's going to be, and he doesn't get in that team, he might think in the back of his mind, hang on a minute, like, I'm far better than James Tarkowski and Michael Keane, and I'm not getting in ahead of them. Man United wanted to buy me for millions of pounds in the summer. I'm everything that you've just called Jared Branthwaite.
Yeah.
England's best next centre defender, and he can't get in the team. I agree with you completely. I'm just thinking in the back of his mind, if Dyche makes a,
well, can you imagine the scenario if Branthwaite is on the bench, Michael Keane does start, and Everton concede early? Can you imagine?
It's a mistake or something
exactly. Like that. You don't want that. You don't mess about in the Premier League. You can get away with it against Ipswich, because Ipswich didn't have much to throw at us. And again, against Newcastle, they played with no centre forward, so we got away with it there. But let's make no bones about it. You're playing your best team, and Jared Branthwaite is Europe's, I'd say, top 10 defenders. Hence why he's quoted for 80, 90 million, and he'll be a certain starter for England in the World Cup.
Talking about Everton's best team then, we had a bit of a debate last week on what actually is Everton's best 11. Do you think we're any closer after Saturday's results of finding that out? I mean, just to elaborate, I know in modern day football there's not really a best 11 anymore because it's your squad. But I still think you've got a core,
core 8, 9, yeah.
And then obviously there's players that come in and out, whether it's rested or because of injuries or suspensions, etc. But yeah, I mean, I tried my best to name Everton's 11, and again, I think I probably named about 7 or 8, but I still struggled a little bit. So do you think on the back of that result, Dyche is any closer whatsoever?
No, I think in the back of Sean Dyche's mind, he probably knows, I'd say, 10 of his best team. I think there's maybe the midfield can fluctuate between Mangala, Guy and Decore. I think it could be 2 of the 3 out of them will play week in, week out. So this Saturday, for argument's sake, you could see Decore in there with Mangala, and Guy could have a rest, like it was the week before. Yeah. We've seen this week against Ipswich, it was Guy and Decore. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mangala comes back into it and a Guy is in there and Decore is dropped, for example, or rested, whichever way you want to dress it up. But I think the team more or less now picks itself. And the reason behind that is that due to the poor performance we've seen from Jasper Lindstrom so far this season. I think if he would have started the season well, I think there could have been an argument to have pushed Jack Harrison out the side, but that never happened. Didn't show the right attitude on the pitch, so it made sense. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it made sense for him to drop out. So I think the team picks itself. There's an argument to say Seamus Coleman or Ashley Young, but on the basis of the last 5 or 6 games, I think Ashley Young's been outstanding. I've always liked Ashley Young. I'm not in favour of him playing at right back when he's up against a really world-class out-and-out winger.
Someone with pace.
So, like a Salah, for example, which we've seen in last season's derby. He was left isolated. Salah, whoever it was, Diaz, they were running at him left, right and centre. He was sent off after half an hour. So these things can happen because obviously his age. But one thing I do like about Ashley Young is that his professionalism. He's 39 years of age. He's obviously, you're hearing stories of how effective he is in training, especially with the young lads. He's never injured as well. For a 39-year-old player, with the amount of miles he's got on the clock, with the wealth of experience he has, he's been outstanding for Everton and a free transfer again. And we've been very, very critical about Everton's recruitment team and me personally as well, with the likes of Jake O'Brien and Jasper Lindstrom so far, and some of the signs that we've made in the past 2 or 3 years. And Beto springs to mind, but one thing you've got to say about them is that they've got some players through the line. Some players through the door that have really done well. The likes of Ashley Young and Iliman Diaye spring to mind straight away. But Ashley Young's been outstanding in the past 6 or 7 weeks. So there's an argument to say that Ashley Young is a certain starter now, and Seamus needs to worry about his place. Mikalenko plays on the basis of he's the only fit left back we've got. 2 centre backs we've just spoken about in depth. I think it's any 2 from 3 in terms of the midfielders, in terms of Mangala, Guy and Doucouré. When Iroegbunam comes back, I think he'll be in the mix as well. But you've got Jack Harrison on one wing, Dwight McNeil on the other, and then you've got Iliman Diaye and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I think the team basically picks itself now.
McNeil on the left, yeah, not in the middle.
I like him coming in. But I like that option that we've got now, that you can put McNeil on the wing and put Iliman Diaye in a 10, or you can put Iliman Diaye on the wing and then push McNeil. We've got that option. So I've seen Everton this season where it looked like a 4-3-3, and you've got McNeil and Iliman Diaye supporting Calvert-Lewin. But then I've seen them, as we've seen for the second half against Ipswich, where they've had 10 men behind the ball effectively. So, yeah, it's great that we've got them options.
I did like to remind Joe Thomas that Dwight McNeil did provide another assist from a central position,
of course,
on Saturday as well. So let's have a look at some of the comments, because in reference to Michael Keane, so we'll track back a little bit. So Tizul Islam says, no way Michael Keane gets in before a fit Jared Branthwaite. Emma EFC, in reference to offering Michael Keane a new contract, not on his current wages. I think that's probably a good shout, to be honest.
Yeah, he'd have to have a wage decrease.
And will he even get the same wages that he's on now at other clubs as well? No. So he's probably, unfortunately for him, looking at a decrease in his wages. I'm sure that's not ideal for him, but I'm sure he's on plenty of money anyway.
Been there 8 years.
Yeah. John Jones, he misses headers from corners and Pickford stays on his line. Both are only okay with the ball coming straight at them. Nash EFC, this is probably a good point actually. Put it this way, if Van Dijk was coming back from injury, but Gomez played well, 100% Van Dijk comes back in.
Spot on.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Roy Nixon, I will be interested to see if Angelotti comes in for Branthwaite. Let's not try and sell Jared.
I think all the big clubs are going to come in for him in the summer. I think obviously Manchester United tested Everton's resolve, and obviously Everton did very well to keep hold of the prize, that's it. But then it's going to become a conundrum in the summer that Everton have got a very, very good left-footed sided defender. Yeah. And they're very few and far between left-sided defenders as it is. We've got an exceptional one who's going to be playing for England at the World Cup, who's just knocked back, what did we knock back, 70, 80 million? And that's to a mid-table Man United team. So you're going to have a lot of clubs looking at him. I know, obviously... I'm
not sure United's bid got quite to that level, did it? 70, 80 million. I think it was around the 50,
60, whatever it was, with all kinds of add-ons.
That's what we were looking for, 70, 80. But hopefully, if he gets himself fit and has a good season...
But then for Jared Branthwaite, you're looking at it and going, we're going into a brand new stadium.
Exactly.
That could be a part of that.
There's so many, different options for him, and his contract is, in terms of length, is still quite substantial as well, isn't it? Yeah. So, I think everyone at the club is quite relaxed over his future. Let's just get him back on the pitch, get him back playing, and get him back in form. Okay. Quick one here. Nash EFC. I would offer Branthwaite the captaincy, taking us into Bramley-Moore in the hope he stays for a few more years, which you've literally just touched upon.
Yeah. You've got to look at it from Branthwaite's perspective as well. He's probably, if a big club comes in, what I mean by that is like a top Premier League club, an IA, a Manchester City or an Arsenal or a Real Madrid, then from his perspective, he's going to go, what am I going to gain by staying at Everton? All well and good having a great stadium, but from his perspective, he's going, Champions League, treble me wages, it's no-brainer.
But if United are own, I'm sure there is more clubs interested in him, it's just whether they actually need a centre-back. United obviously do, or did in the summer. Again, you want to go to a United side club that's
I think he'll be aiming higher. He'll be aiming higher than Man United.
So, I mean, the only other team inside that top 4 or 5 who I really think, I mean, someone's going to just shut me down here, but really think that they need a centre-back is probably Liverpool. I don't know whether, maybe Arsenal as well. I don't know whether City do. I don't know.
Because of a Nick Barmby situation on our hands again.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that he will go to Liverpool. What I'm saying is, the club's in that, the 4 or 5 positions. Where else is he going to go? Maybe Real Madrid. I don't know.
Yeah. Hopefully he stays, by the way.
Yeah, hopefully he stays. I mean, I think that's a good point from Nash, because I think, Seamus Coleman's been going on for many years now, but I think we would all fully expect this to be his last season. Yeah. Maybe he would want one more opportunity to
play at the stadium.
Yeah, to play in the stadium. So we would continue on as the club captain, I suppose, if that's what you want to call it. But at the end of the day, at least within the next 12 to 18 months, the club captaincy is going to come up for grabs. And who else in that current team now?
Well, Tarkowski takes it now currently, doesn't he? Okay. And then you've got Pickford as well. I think there's a lot of experienced players in there. You got Takori, just a guy, but again, all their contracts finish at the end of the season as well. So there's, I think at the end of the season, I think I spoke about it before, I think there's about 10 players that are left contracted to Everton, because obviously a lot of contracts finish and a lot of loans go back, etc. So listen, I'd love to say to Jad Branthwaite, there's a new 3 or 4 year deal, whatever it is. There's the captaincy, stay with us for the rest of your life, but we've got to be realistic here. He's going to be a world-class centre-back.
No,
he's not going to be staying with us.
I agree, but I think you say that, but you're only saying that on the basis that we're, a lower league team, as in a bottom half team. If for, if like whatever happens over the next year or two, if we have this bounce where we end up like
Aston Villa.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never know, do you?
Of course, yeah. Things can change. Yeah, things can change. And listen, what Aston Villa have done over the past couple of seasons, Everton could easily do and repeat themselves. But we've just got to stay realistic at the same token. And again, I think the Friedkin group were very good in terms of. I spoke to a Roma journalist, and he said they were very good at. Before they got there, Roma was just selling their prized assets all the time, the likes of Antonio Rudiger, etc. And that's all they were doing, interested in selling the best players. I think Salah was another one. But now, when they got there, they were like saying, we're not selling our best players anymore. It stops. And we built the team around them. So fingers crossed, the takeover gets over the line, and they obviously repeat what they've done at Roma in terms of keeping the best players.
Yeah, and I don't care what anyone said, the stadium is a huge pull for new players and existing players as well, without a doubt. Emma says United will be a terrible move for them, which I think we both agree with, Tony. Okay, let's move on then. Let's look ahead to Fulham. Saturday, 5:30 kickoff. And Fulham managed by former Everton manager Marco Silva, which we've briefly discussed. Fan of Marco Silva?
Yeah, I like him. Yeah. I like the way he goes about his business, speaks well in the media. I like his style of football. He always wants to win games. He's always on the front foot. I like the look of him. And I know he's been in the Premier League a few times at Watford and Everton, and now he's with Fulham. I thought he's done a fantastic job with Fulham. I thought he's done a decent job with Everton. I thought he's doing a great job with Fulham as well. Look where they are. They were, again, themselves, Fulham were in the Championship a few years ago, and now they're a steady Premier League club. And you're thinking with Marco Silva there, they're a mid-table club, and that's something that we'd love to have at the end of the season, wouldn't we? So, I like Marco Silva. I think he was, harshly treated. I think Everton lost 3 games and he was sacked, but it was in the main. I think it was a disaster in terms of not giving him a chance. I think he was. I think he got a tough job there at Everton at the time.
Do you think, just to sidestep a little bit, his sacking was maybe the pinpointing, in the timeline of the Macheri era of when things just kind of went a little bit chaotic?
Yeah, 100%.
Because let's face it, who came in after that? Carlo Ancelotti.
Sam Allardyce was in the mix as well, didn't he? Was he before or after?
Allardyce was before Silva. So I think Silva was sacked in the November or December, and then Ancelotti. I'm sure Ancelotti came in. Let us know in the comments if we're right or wrong, but I'm sure that was the case.
Ancelotti came in December time, didn't he?
Yeah, so I remember it was a good couple of weeks after Silva was sacked.
Yeah.
I know we don't do things quick when we appoint new managers, but I do remember that because Moyes was spoke about, wasn't it? We know how close that was.
Of course.
I just think you can actually pinpoint that time where obviously no one's going to say no to Carlo Ancelotti.
Of course.
If it's David Moyes or Carlo Ancelotti, it's Ancelotti every day of the week. But even then, that was like a crazy time in itself.
Yeah.
It was COVID, or it was like round about COVID, wasn't it? And you know, former Real Madrid manager comes to Everton, then leaves Everton to go back to Real Madrid. It's just obviously just insane. I just think you could pinpoint that era or that time in the Machiri era and just say that's literally when it just went absolutely
chaotic,
crazy.
It was, yeah.
And up and down, I mean.
Of course, yeah. It was like our expectations were like through the roof. At one stage when Carlo Ancelotti took over, we were top of the league after like 6 or 7 games. Yeah.
But do you remember, sorry, that because the league had been suspended, or there wasn't as many games that for that Boxing Day that had been played, but we were still there.
Yeah, we were still in the mix. James Rodriguez, Luca Dean, Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Yerry Mina, all these players. Everton were playing really good football, and it all obviously petered out. But yeah, going back to Marco Silva, I like him. I like his style of play. I like his approach. I like his philosophy on how to attack teams. And he'll always get the best out of his team. I like Marco Silva.
I mean, you mentioned earlier that we do have a good record against Fulham, but
not recently.
Yeah. So we haven't won at home to Fulham since September of 2018. That's how long.
Generally before that, I don't think we got beaten.
No, I don't think we'd ever been beaten at home. Anyway, I mean, little quiz question. Don't know if you remember this. So it was 2018. We won 3-0. Can you remember the scorers?
3-0.
2018. And guess who was the manager for Everton?
In 2018. Sigurdsson score?
He did.
2018.
You're going to kick yourself if you don't get the manager, by the way.
2018.
I'll tell you the manager while you have a think of the goal scorer, or shall I tell you the goal scorers while you have a think of the manager?
It was a big dunk.
No.
No,
the manager, no. It was Marco Silva.
Was it? So it just goes to show, doesn't it, that he's got a very good record at Goodison?
Yeah, so Sigurdsson scored 2 and Tosun got the other one as well. Cenk Tosun, good old Cenk. 3-0 win, and that was the last time.
But before that, obviously that was the last win. I am quite certain that Everton hadn't lost a home game against Fulham at Goodison Park.
You're right, you're absolutely spot on.
And obviously recently it's been a bit of a bad patch for us with the different managers that we've had in recent times.
Even the mighty Carlo Ancelotti couldn't beat Fulham at home, which was a game played behind closed doors.
Knock us out the cup last year, if you remember.
He did. Well, that was a draw, but obviously they knocked us out the cup. You know,
Nana on penalty,
yeah, our friend Nana. Beto scored the goal, though.
Yeah. Listen, it's a game. If you look at it, right, we've just come on the back of a win away from home, our first this season. You're going into a game at home, going, right, we can get at Fulham. They're going to create chances, Fulham, the way they play. They're not going to sit back. They're going to attack us. So, in essence, it should be like the ideal scenario for Sean Dyche. Go, right, we've got actually a team that are going to be flying at us. We can sit back and hit them, get balls in the box at Calvert-Lewin, get Iliman Ndiaye on the ball, and you've got Goodison Park. And we're going to be reminiscing a lot this season, Ian, about Goodison Park, but it's Saturday night, under the lights, we're coming into winter time at Goodison Park. What more can you want, do you know what I mean, going into this game? I'm really looking forward to it, and imagine coming away with a win. It's just so positive going into these batch of games, because it's so easy to forget that our December is an absolute nightmare run of fixtures. So we've got to get these points on the boards in these run of fixtures. We've got Southampton and West Ham coming up. We've got to get points on the boards, because we are effectively in December playing in the Champions League.
Yeah, we need a buffer, really, don't we? Like coming up to Wolves, Man United, you know, that run of fixtures. And it's interesting that you make that point, because I was meant to make it earlier, that the more points that we get over the next couple of weeks in this period, the better. I know that goes without saying. That's obviously, you know, a stupid thing to say, but it is the case because of the run of fixtures in December.
I'm not just that, Ian, sorry to interrupt. It knocks the stuffing out the teams below you as well. So if you see Everton all of a sudden look at us now. We all thought that Nottingham Forest to be down with us this season, struggling.
Good start.
Flying. And all of a sudden you're looking at them, they're going nowhere. They're out of the woods and already. So it kind of knocks the stuffing out the teams behind you. So imagine if we get like a win on Saturday and pick up a couple of points against Southampton and obviously West Ham all of a sudden you go, Everton, you're not catching them now. They've got they've got their wins. Do you know what I mean?
It's early days, isn't it? And you know the main thing to do this season was to survive, no matter how you do it. Obviously, we don't want a last day, you know, relegation fight. You know, where if we don't win, we're going to go down. We don't want that. We want to be comfortably be safe. I think I suggested at least by March.
Yeah,
because if you look at it, last season without the points deduction, we finished 12th. We weren't actually still safe. I don't think. Or we would have been safe.
We were about 3 or 4 games to go. We were safe.
I think we were safe anyway by December. Weirdly.
Yeah.
Like, it was just something stupid like that. But I think, you know, an early March, late March type of, you know, safeness.
Do you know, more importantly, obviously you want it because you're never told and you're meant for your own mental state. You don't want to be sweating on games in April and May time. I want it so we can enjoy Goodison.
Well, that's the thing.
I want to be going into Goodison in April, May, and relaxing and enjoying it and getting nostalgic and getting emotional. I want to go into Goodison Park going, right, we're safe. I don't want to be going into Goodison, going through the Bournemouth scenario again on the final day. I don't want to be going to them games where there's things riding on it, and absolutely a traumatic experience for all Everton fans. You don't want to be going to Goodison on its last final days before the bulldozers go through. You don't want to be going there thinking, we need 3 points here to stay up. Look where they are. Look who they're playing on Monday. You don't want to be looking at other teams' fixtures. You want to be enjoying the Goodison Park experience because it's going to be emotional for all of us. Going to them towards them final days or leading up to that Southampton game. It's going to be really, really emotional. Yeah. So you want to enjoy it as much as you possibly can. You don't want to be going through that turnstiles worrying about other sets of results before our ball's kicked. You want to enjoy the Goodison Park experience for the latter games.
If I can just big myself up a little bit, we're on course for what I predicted to be 11 points over the course of the next couple of games. So this includes the Palace game. So I said from Palace, Newcastle, Fulham and West Ham, I think we should be looking at getting 11 points. And I think when I said that, it was obviously on the back of Leicester, was it?
Yeah.
So I said we beat Palace, draw against Newcastle, and then, I don't know, we're only 2 games into this, by the way, but I've got Fulham down as a win, so that put us on 7. I got Southampton as a win, so that put us on 10, and then I do think I'd take a point against West Ham, so that put us on 11. So we're on course for that. Would you agree with that?
I'd take that, and then anything you get from the teams that we've got, because I just made a reference there, we are playing in the Champions League in December. We have got some horrendous fixtures.
You'll play the Champions League music?
I hope so. We've got all the Champions League teams in one full swoop. So I'm not sure it'll be maybe a Merry Christmas to us, but if we do get one big result, who knows? We've seen what we've done to Liverpool at Goodison Park last season. So it's the last derby at Goodison, so who knows what can happen in December time. So it all a win. As much as I said at the start, the performance wasn't great, but a win, what it does to confidence. We're going into Fulham optimistic, thinking, do you know what, we'll beat these. So imagine, as you've just touched on there, we've beaten Palace, we've drawn with Newcastle, we beat Fulham, beat Southampton, you get a point at West Ham, and imagine the confidence as supporters, as a club, going into that glut of fixtures, that we're thinking, you wouldn't be looking at Man United then, you wouldn't be looking at Liverpool going, hang on, you'd be going in going, hang on, we can give these a game now all of a sudden, definitely. Rather than if you're going in on the back of a couple of poor performances and results, you're going, I'm dreading this, what these could do to us. So it's amazing what a couple of wins can do, especially when you're hitting them Champions League teams in December.
I mean, it's so early still in the season, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure the teams who are below us now are thinking, God, that gap there, even early on, it's substantial. But you've seen teams come back from greater positions. I think it's just, certainly in the middle of the table, from probably like 8th downwards, it's so tight. You're looking at like a game swing, and then Everton could be up there. I mean, if we win on Saturday against Fulham, we go on the same amount of points as Fulham. So we would go on the same amount of points as United, you know, if they were to lose. So I just think that keep plodding along, keep doing what we're doing, certainly in this period, get as many points as possible. And I would
got to capitalise on it, Ian. Got to.
No excuses against Fulham. You know, put in the back of your mind the poor recent 4 against Fulham. Shouldn't have anything to do with it. Fulham are a good team. They've got a good manager, as we've just previously stated then. But you'd like to think at home that we've got enough to get a win.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Fulham are a great side. They're a mid-table side, which in theory Everton should be themselves with the squad that they've got. They shouldn't be anywhere near where they are. We're down there at the moment because of the poor start we've had with injuries, with tactics, with form, etc. And the Bournemouth game and throwing 2-0 leads away. That's why where we are. But in theory, we should be mid-table exactly where Fulham are, because we can, as you just touched on there, Ian, we can go on the same points as them. So it's a game where we can win. And I think they've just got to give the ball to as much. I think there's a lot more. I spoke before about there's a lot more from this Everton team than what it's showing. A lot more. And what I mean by that, I think it's just been, in the last couple of weeks, been results-based, like, don't get beat, don't get beat, don't get beat. We've seen that against Newcastle. We were, like, happy for the draw, so to speak, at home to Newcastle, whereas in 3 or 4 years ago, you wanted to be getting at Newcastle, hang on, we'll beat these. But now it's like, get a point, and we're kind of settling for. So I get the narrative to try and get results. But I think there's a lot more to come from this Everton team in terms of on the front foot, playing attacking football. And we've seen it against Bournemouth. I thought Everton were fantastic against Bournemouth. Yeah, we threw the 2-goal lead away, but I thought the perfect blend of attacking football, defending well, counter-attacking, bit of skill from Iliman getting shots, creating chances. I thought Everton were brilliant. And if Everton can play like they did against Bournemouth, obviously excluding the errors towards the end, I think they'll be Fulham. I think there's a lot more to come from this Everton team than what we've seen.
Okay, we're going to move on to your team selection and predictions. I'm sure team selection will be pretty straightforward. Before we do, I'll just quickly run through some of the comments. So Nash says, Shane with Silva, as I think he was too inexperienced for us at the time. He will be mentioned for next season if he was previously not with us. That's actually a good point, that, isn't it? If he'd not been with us, do you think he'd be in the running for the Everton job if Sean Dyche was to not be offered a new deal or be sacked this season?
Do you know what? There's an argument too, isn't he? He plays attacking football. I think at the time as well, which is going to be interesting what happens with the next regime at Everton, with the CEO, director of football, the manager, whoever it may be, is that when Marco Silva was there, he was going through that head-scratching scenario of Farhad Mashiri was buying players, agents were buying players, Marcel Brands was buying players, Marco Silva was buying players. Pretty much when it was like when Ronald Koeman was there, Koeman was buying players, Steve Walsh was buying players, Mashiri was buying players, Bill Kenwright was buying players, agents would recommend them. It was an absolute mess. So it'd be interesting to see what the next regime offers in terms of a director of football, CEO who gets involved, is the manager, etc. So it's going to be interesting. So that was that like Marco Silva theory when he was there at Everton, and what the next manager may be, what he's up against.
John Jones with a comment regarding the captaincy. There's obviously reference to what we spoke about before. So Tarky was in the ref's ear before kick-off. He was talking to his back four before the game, and he was in the ref's ear after the penalty. That is good leadership. I think you mentioned there that he does.
Ashley
take the
Young's
captaincy.
brilliant at it as well,
Ashley
by the
Young
way.
is the,
I love it.
I think he's probably the best at the club at it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember against Newcastle last season when we were 1-0 down, Dominic Calvert-Lewin scored the penalty.
Yeah.
No one claimed for the penalty decision other than Ashley Young.
Exactly.
And it was like, the referee was like, oh yeah, it's a penalty.
It's a penalty. I think it's been well documented. Everton have been too nice for years on the pitch in terms of, and you look at all the other clubs, the surrounding referees, I'm not saying that's right, but they get majority of decisions if you start questioning referees' decisions. Ashley Young, let's put it this way, if we're playing against Ashley Young, you go, I hate him, I can't stand him, he's doing me head in. As an opposition player, you want him in your team. You want him in your team all day long, and kudos to his form. He's been exceptional in the past 5 or 6 weeks.
Just last question then. So Emmett has asked about Tim Iroegbunam, and he's injured now, isn't he? He's got a long-term injury, but before that he was kind of dropped from the team. Yeah. You know, there was parts of his play that looked really good, and we know the issues with his weaknesses, like with regards to conceding goals and stuff like that. Do you think he was kind of thrown in at the deep end a bit too much? I mean, he did look good. No one's saying that he didn't look good, but again, there was weaknesses to his game that clearly at detriment to the team. I mean, Emma's suggesting here that he's out of favour because the interview that he did, and he mentioned about, he said something like, Dyche doesn't tell us what to do or something like that.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that last time. I don't think the Bournemouth game's done him any favours. I think when we were 2-0 up and he was trying to play passes through the Ivory Needle, which was never on. And an Everton situation at the time when They were scrapping for results. He was playing silly passes, and obviously Bournemouth went on to win the game. So I think he's probably paid the price there. But that's part of him maturing as a player. He's only a young lad. He's probably, what's he played, about 15 games in the Premier League. So he's going to learn. And I think Dyche has probably said, right, we've got a young player who's really done well for us this season at the start of the season. Don't forget, he was our best player the first 5 or 6 games. By a long way, by the way, by an absolute long way. He was our best player, box to box, getting tackles in, playing offensive football, and he was really good.
Is it no coincidence, sorry to interrupt though, is that him coming out of the team now? The defence looks a bit more shored up because of the midfield, looks a bit solid and stronger.
Yeah, because you've got 2 players that don't advance past the halfway line. Decore in that 6 role and just a guy in that, wherever you want to play him in, next to him, they're not going past the halfway line. So if you've got Jared Branthwaite, James Tarkowski, Ashley Young and Vitaly Mykolenko, who sit deep anyway, and Everton's fullbacks under Sean Dyche don't cross the halfway line anyway, and then you've got 2 centre midfielders playing in front of them, plus your goalie, you're gonna find it hard to break down. So that's probably why Everton have looked a lot more tight, whereas Iroegbunam was trying to go forward a lot more and trying to play that killer pass. Well, eventually, the next manager, whoever it may be, might want to start doing that. So hang on, I don't need 2 defensive midfielders on top of a back 4 that's quite rigid and play a low block anyway, and a goalkeeper. So I want to play a little bit more advancing, whereas in the top teams, they don't play like that. They play a little bit more advancing. So it's going to be interesting if whoever the next manager may be gets older in a boon, and I want to see a lot more from you, because it's highly unlikely the next manager that comes in, he won't be playing that setup. Or in fact, he'll play the wing backs or full backs a lot more further forward than what they currently do, because we don't see it obviously from Mykolenko or Ashley Young or Koeman. They very rarely cross the halfway line. Everton play a low block.
I love the low block terminology. What's your favourite football terminology in football?
Run the channels.
Run the channels.
Where did that come from? Run the channels.
That's an old one, that though, isn't
Do
it?
you know what? I manage on a different note. I manage a kids under-8 football team, and some of the expressions that we've got to familiarise ourselves with in this generation of football, and they look at you and you go, and you tend to forget that you go, and they don't know what it actually means. You know what I mean? Like, my son come up to me the other day and says, "What does that mean, Dad, when you say put the game to bed?" And I went, "You don't realise that it just means like try and finish the game, lad." It's like these expressions, but these are the terminologies we're coming out with this day and age.
Funnily enough, we've gone on a major tangent here, but I'm going to say it anyway. I remember when I was dead young, I can remember it clear as day, playing football, Sunday League football, when I was dead young. I can't remember the age, but my dad obviously on the sideline, and I must have been having a shocking game, because he goes, "Put your socks up, Ian." And I was like, oh.
I get it all the time. It's funny.
I went to pull my socks up, and then I just thought at the time,
that's what he meant.
And naive.
So now we've gone on to different terminologies this day and age. Run the channels.
Do you know what my favourite is? Well, I bet you use it all the time. Double pivot.
No, I don't.
No,
I don't play. I don't use that. We've gone to number 6s and number 8s and number 10s, and
that's quite back to basics, that, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's like 1930s style terminology.
It is, yeah. Suits us, suits Everton.
Okay, let us know in the comments what your favourite football terminology is. While people do that, do you want to go through what your team would be for Fulham?
Picks itself. Ashley Young, Mykolenko, Branthwaite, Tarkowski. I'll bring Mangala into the team. I'll put just a guy in there. I'd rest Decore. Play Jack Harrison, Dwight McNeil, Iliman Ndiaye and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And you just got to give the ball to as much as possible to Iliman Ndiaye. I said it in pre-season when I first seen him, and I'll continue to say it. He's just our star player by a country mile. It's very rare that we get to see a player of this lad's ability. He's just our modern day Stephen Pienaar. He's exceptional. He's skillful. He works his backsides off the ball. He's just a brilliant footballer that we're lucky to have. So give the ball to Iliman Ndiaye as much as possible, and we'll get a positive result.
You can get my team on Friday when I do a podcast with Joe Thomas. So I'm not going to give it now, but we are going to get Tony's prediction.
Looking forward to Saturday, as we've just been getting all nostalgic about Goodison Park. I think a lot of Everton fans will be taking a lot in on Saturday, because it may be one of the last night games that we'll experience at Goodison. The few and farther team is the 15 games left at Goodison now.
Yeah, well, obviously the Brentford one, all the games have been changed now, haven't they, for Sky? Certainly in December anyway. So Brentford after that is 3 o'clock
The
as far as I can
Merseyside
remember.
derbies at
Half
early
12,
kick-off.
yeah.
So they're going to be...
Chelsea's been changed to 2 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
So there's not going to be many night games left at Goodison, and this is going to be one of the last. So I think a lot of Evertonians will be getting emotional, nostalgic, but more importantly, get at Fulham, create a really bear pit atmosphere on Saturday. Going in with confidence, and I think we'll win this one by 2-1.
2-1.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, again, you can get my prediction on Friday with Joe. I'm not revealing all just yet. I think that's probably calls it, Tony. We've done an hour. I know you've got to shoot off. So any final remarks before we do?
No, it's just great to obviously talk positively with Everton on and off the pitch. Hopefully we'll see in the next couple of weeks, maybe months, things will start to resolve themselves off the pitch with the potential takeover of the Freaking Group, and then we can look forward to moving into our new home at the Bramley Moore Stadium. It looks to anyone who's obviously not living in the city at the moment, it looks unbelievable on the waterfront. It's exceptional. It's like you look at it and you go, wow. It looks like a UFO's just landed there in the dock. It looks unbelievable. And as much as that, we can't wait to get into it and enjoy the facilities and all these Evertonians to be walking through the turnstiles for the first time. You kind of look at the back of your mind going, wow, I don't want to say goodbye to Goodison. So, it's going to be emotional for the next couple of weeks, but particularly Saturday with probably one of the last night games at Goodison.
Okay, well, we will call it there. That is all for today's show. As always, give us a thumbs up and hit the like button. Hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As always, the support that you give us is really appreciated and goes a long way. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Tony Scott, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.